opportunity to speak with you all today. I really appreciate you taking the time to join the session. I'm going to try and attempt to share my screen now, so forgive me if this goes a little bit wrong, but as I said to Ollie, I'm not a big Zoom user, so here goes. Share that, and then hopefully can everybody see that first slide?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, that's great. So as it says on the slide, my name is Jill. I'm going to tell you a little bit about us at the SWIP group and what we do. And then Rachel from CT Eco Plus, our trusted delivery partner, will share some information. And together, we hope to demonstrate how we can support you moving forward in any future projects. Okay, so SWIP. So this is the first slide, covers off who we are and where we came from. SWIP Group consists of 4 companies, as can be seen on the right of the slide. Although each company works independently within its own roles and responsibilities, we collaborate every day as a unified team, sharing knowledge, supporting one another and moving in the same direction to achieve the best possible outcomes. Today, I'm going to concentrate on the SWIP retrofit element of the 4, but first, a quick run through on how we got here today. So 2010, the foundations were starting to be laid. The story begins with a team of just 2, Craig and Paul, with a passion and a history deep in insulation and finding solutions. By 2017, there were still just 2 people with a dream, but the SWIP Limited was officially incorporated. 2017 to 2020 was the development of IWI, room and roof, underfloor insulation and the loft storage solution systems. Between those years, it was a very busy 3 years, pulling together all of the products to create a full suite of internal insulation solutions. And by 2020, the team had grown to a massive 5 people. By 2020 to 2022, there was massive advancements in room in roof and underfloor insulation, and also the addition of the 25-year warranty offered by SWIP. 22 to 24, this period marked a major expansion of retrofit activity across multiple government-funded schemes. In turn, SWIP became more involved as the schemes were driving demand for fabric-first solutions. Thus, by the end of 2024, SWIP had grown to a massive 51 members of staff. On the back of the expansion of the retrofit landscape, we responded to rising demand for competent installers following compliance under PAS 2035. We provided structured online training across IWI, room in roof and underfloor insulation, strengthened national technical support with external technical auditors, built closer collaboration with retrofit coordinators and certification bodies, and developed and launched the warranty platform whilst introducing 100% technical monitoring. We stand today in 2026 as a team of 52 people working together across 4 companies and 10 departments. And it's now at this point that we find that we are reflecting, refining to move forward in an industry that is continually changing. So the challenges local councils and authorities face. I'm sure all of the challenges listed here are familiar headaches for you all. Ageing housing stock and community spaces in disrepair, pressure to achieve EPC targets of C or above, fuel poverty, which obviously should be at the top, demand for compliant PAS 2035, say that once you've had a few wines, ready solutions, and supply chain delivery pressures. So I believe it would be fair to say that there is a huge need for trusted partners who can deliver both quality and consistency. So how can you be sure, if you choose SWIP, that they would be one of your trusted partners? Simple, scalable retrofit solutions. Navigating the rules and guidance around retrofit can be so complex, so we keep our solutions as simple as possible. Systems designed for compliance with Part C, L and F. Building regulations always are at the forefront when we're developing our solutions. Technical support and design guidance. With retrofit, as we know, every install is unique and every project has its own needs and goals. Not only do we provide online training for our approved contractor scheme installers, We are also actively in collaboration with colleges and skill camps to assist in upskilling the workforce within local community. And SWIP. This is our way of saying that we give our partners complete confidence that they're in safe hands, bringing the right people together to ensure every project, big or small, is delivered with collaboration, best practice, meticulous attention to detail, and a continued commitment to meeting everyone's needs and aspirations. So the SWIP's product solutions. You can see the 5 images across the screen there. The first one, which is probably the one that we're going to be talking about the most today, which is IWI. SWIP IWI is installed in intimate contact with the internal face of an external solid wall. It creates a continuous insulation layer that reduces heat loss and delivers a warmer, more energy efficient living or community space. Room in Roof addresses heat loss and drafts by creating a continuous well-fitted insulation layer, reduces condensation risk through moisture-safe design, brings older loft conversions up to modern retrofit standards, and replaces inconsistent legacy insulation with a reliable systemised solution. The SWIP underfloor insulation is installed beneath suspended floors to improve insulation and reduce unwanted heat loss, helping create warmer, more energy-efficient homes and spaces with minimal disruption. The loft storage solution. This provides a strong, safe, load-bearing loft solution that maximises valuable storage space, whether that's the Christmas tree, treasured family heirlooms, or simply practical access where needed. And then finally, I've popped on the SWIP ventilation here. It's not necessarily a solution, but a necessity. We include trickle vents and DMEV fans, which help maintain safe, continuous airflow, prevent moisture buildup, and ensure that property meets the ventilation requirements of Part F when air tightness is improved. So bringing the spotlight back onto SWIP's IWI solution. SWIP IWI is installed in intimate contact with the internal face of an external solid wall. The studs are fixed vertically from floor to ceiling, maintaining full contact with the wall. Studs are set at 600mm centres and fixed using SWIP fixings, ensuring a 40mm penetration to the substrate. Once the stud grid is in place, the spaces between the studs are filled with SWIP EcoBat, which is a glass mineral wool insulation, and it's friction fitted for a secure insulation layer. After insulation, the membrane is applied, open or closed system, depending on the area, and then fully taped and sealed. Plasterboard and skim finish follow and decorated to suit. During the process, pipework is extended where required, electrical sockets and radiators are removed, brought forward and reinstated on completion. Hopefully you will agree this is a very simple solution to upgrading the fabric of our solid wall buildings. Following today, I'll be able to provide you with a few video links demonstrating installation along with further information on the range of solutions that we offer. It sounds very simple to describe it, and in that image there, it shows you the different layers of the system, but the videos give a much better demonstration of how it's actually installed. I like to refer to it as Big Boys Meccano because it really is a simple system to fit as long as all of the preparation has been done correctly. But before I pass you across to Rachel today, I would like to share with you a short video, which is just a taster of a recent project we completed together with C2 Eco, Belchamp Community House in Belchamp, St Paul's. So hopefully when I press play, this should play. Thank you, guys. Hopefully you could hear and see that. I'm now going to try and unshare.
Oh, that's great. So we couldn't hear the video, but we also had the subtitles, so we could see what's going on. But yeah, I think it's good to see that kind of solution in a community building is very useful.
There is a much longer version of that video. We tried to condense it down a little bit because obviously, you know, I think it's about 5 or 6 minutes long, the full one. And after today, I'll send across some links to the full video of the Belchamp Community Project. I know Rachel's done a case study on Belchamp. And I think what we're trying to demonstrate is how, by bringing the right people together, we have the solutions at SWIP to make sure that the properties are insulated well and give the performance that's required. But it's the likes of Rachel picking the right contractor, picking the right delivery partner that will make all the difference to your project.
I think that's a great transition. Shall we go into your presentation, Rachel, and then we'll pick up questions at the end?
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thanks to Jill for her informative presentation. I've been working with SWIP for probably about the last 10 years, but I've been working in domestic and small-scale commercial retrofit for 25 years. And I found out some stuff that I didn't know in that presentation, so always useful. But I'll introduce myself. My name's Rachel Cole. I'm the commercial director for a company called CT Eco Plus Limited. We're based in Worthing on the south coast, but we do cover work nationally. And I've actually done quite a lot of work in Cambridgeshire and surrounding areas. And Belchamp Community Hall sits under Braintree District Council. So I'm hoping what I'm going to share with you today is a bit more of a detailed understanding about some of the projects that you may be facing. You've all had some advice on what you can do to improve the energy efficiency of your community spaces, but actually taking the plunge and taking the first step is a different situation altogether and can be very daunting. And one of the things we pride ourselves in is that we do quite a lot of hand holding in that, but we make sure that you're covered from all angles, specifically in regards to building regulations, some of the constraints that may be placed on you when you're applying for grant funding. For example, if you're applying for lottery funding or from the Village Halls Fund or other Arts Council funding, for example, that is available for small-scale retrofit projects. So I'm now also going to try and share my screen, and we'll see how we get on. So I'm hoping that you can see that, a beautiful picture of a village hall. It's interesting, when I was putting this presentation together, I asked Google to give me pictures of village halls, and some of them were beautiful, solid brick buildings with bunting around the door like the one I picked, and some of them looked like shantytown shacks made of corrugated steel. Some of them were purely built in breeze blocks. So I think I appreciate that what you're facing across your portfolio of buildings is not necessarily straightforward challenges. And I think that what I'm hoping to demonstrate today is that we can offer you support when we are looking at your projects. So I did some research on this, and it's actually acre research that I used, but the slide is titled "The Challenge: Rising Energy Costs," and I think we all appreciate, and I live in a village myself, and I do appreciate that village halls, particularly in rural communities, are at the heart of that communities, but many of you are struggling. According to the Acre research, Rising Energy Prices and Village Halls study that was done in 2022 and then revised in 2024, only 16% of people would describe them as being energy efficient. And apparently you spend 27% of your annual income on energy, which is staggeringly high. And 1 in 10 halls actually spend over 50% of their income on energy bills. And I think that rather determines, you know, in most instances, certainly in my experience of energy efficiency on the construction and what we call the building fabric of the buildings that you're looking after. And, you know, it's 57% of halls reported financial difficulties during, you know, due to rising energy prices. And some halls have seen bills increase by up to 400%. Now, when you're buying commercial energy, you're not covered by the energy price cap, which domestic consumers have been covered by for about the last 10 years. I think it was introduced by the outgoing Cameron government. So it's like the Wild West out there when you're buying your power, you know, and if you happen to go, if you're not in contract and you go on a default, you can be paying anything up to £2 or £3 per kilowatt hour, which is a crazy situation. And I do know that Acre offer a lot of support in terms of energy bills, and you've got a particular switching partner that you work with. So I would urge you, before you consider fabric improvements, try and get your energy costs down. But I think the consequences, and this is something that was discussed with us by the Belchamp Community Hall and the trustees there, is that they found that in the winter, they had struggled to let the building out. They also found that some new people that were hiring, if they hired it in the winter months, they didn't repeat book because it was an uncomfortable environment for people to be in. So they introduced some 50 pence in the slot heaters so that people could hire out the building and bring a pocket full of change and warm up the space. But unfortunately, that wasn't a successful intervention. But, you know, I think what we want from our village halls and community spaces is for them to be warm and welcoming, and they tend to be cold and drafty. And I think that puts increasing pressure on volunteers and reserves, but also on trustees, because you're the guys that feel the pressure, you know, when it comes to ensuring that most of these buildings are charitable concerns, and you're not trying to make a profit, but you have to keep your head above water. So Cambridge Acre, did some research on Cambridge Acre as well. I think part of the work that Ollie's been doing is giving you this sustainability advice and completing energy audits. But there is practical advice, such as today's session. There's training opportunities and networking. Also provide funding guidance. Now, one of the things we did for Belchamp Community Hall is we supported them through the grant application process for the lottery funding. So, and there was, I will go on in the presentation to talk about that, but there were a few things that needed to be done and had to be done for transparency in pricing and things like that. So, you know, work with Cambridge. You obviously are already engaging with Cambridge Acre, but the Hallmark accreditation is a great thing. First time I've ever heard about that, but what a great name. You can get a mark for your hall and have a certificate that can go up. So there's some of the things that Cambridge Acre are doing. So what do? Well, we are a principal contractor and we offer turnkey delivery. And I think one of the reasons that Belchamp Community Hall chose us is because of that, because they didn't want to have extra committee meetings and put different people in charge of different parts of the retrofit. They wanted us to combine their entire retrofit for them, and that's what we did. We can do internal wall insulation and external wall insulation. They come under the banner of solid wall insulation, underfloor insulation, loft insulation, room in roof insulation, and flat roof insulations. So all of those we have, Jill spoke about some of the standards and accreditations, but all of those we are not only accredited under the relevant standards, we're also carded with the system manufacturers. So, for example, we couldn't install SWIP products unless our operatives have been through comprehensive training and ongoing professional development with SWIP to make sure that they can install the products to the correct standard. We can also look at clean heat technologies such as air source heat pumps, mechanical ventilation, and background ventilation, because when you insulate your buildings, ventilation becomes much more important. Windows and doors we can also do. So we've got CERTAS certification for windows and doors, and we've also got NIC-EIC accreditation under edition 18 of the wiring regs to do your rewiring. Because when you start to look at these retrofit projects, you're then going to start to find things that may need upgrading. You may need to look at your consumer units. You may need to look at some of your circuitry, etc. So the idea is, by working with us, and of course, I appreciate that you've got choices. But if you look for a turnkey delivery partner that is suitably accredited, you'll have a much more straightforward retrofit journey. But you have to make sure that you look at all of those accreditations. And of course, it goes without saying that we're fully insured. And we are also accredited with the relevant wider certification bodies for things like the international standards, ISO 9001, ISO 14001 and ISO 45001, and they're the standards for quality, environment and health and safety that are accepted universally. But our approach is always fabric first. We look at the whole building, so we deploy what we call whole building thinking. But also we can tailor it to your budget and schedule. And one of the things that's important is you don't want to take your village hall out of commission in the middle of summer, when of course we'd love to be doing insulation in the middle of summer, because that's going to be your busiest period. So we have to work with you on scheduling to make sure that we can go and do the work at probably your lowest occupancy period, to give you the best chance to preserve revenues. So this case study I have passed on to Ollie along with a copy of my slides. So all I've got on here is a screenshot, but there's a few boxes. So first of all, we did a thorough survey. It was really important that we went, and I personally went along with the guy that did the work or that headed up the install team, to make sure that we looked at everything, and we went through the entire building, even looking at parts of the building where we weren't working, and we made sure we looked inside and outside, because when you're doing retrofit, you may not notice that there may not be any appearance of damp, for example, but when you walk around the outside, you might find a large patch of blown render that could potentially cause damp. So if you're putting in systems that should last for 50 years plus, and certainly come with a 25-year guarantee, you have to make sure you're going to protect that system through its lifetime. We then produced a bill of quantities, and that is a broken down bill of quantities that shows profit and overhead and materials and labour costs broken out separately. We found that that was the most appropriate way to do the pricing in respect of some of the funding applications, because the people that were providing the grant assistance wanted to see the detailed pricing, and that went through everything down to the last light switch and plug socket. We produced a formal proposal. We also did a ventilation strategy to make sure that the building could have the correct levels of background and mechanical ventilation to make it work properly. And when we consider ventilation, we also look at air tightness. So we made sure, for example, in this property where we did replacement windows, that we put air tightness solutions in for the replacement windows. And that's really to maximize the benefit of the performance of the wall insulation system and future-proof it. We provided an electrical schedule of works and a construction phase plan so that you could see from a safety perspective where the welfare unit would be, where materials would be stored, what the site signing in arrangements were, and things like emergency protocols in relation to fire, evacuation, and environmental issues. We used a JCT contract, which is a joint contracts tribunal contract. The reason we use these is they are standard terms and conditions. Our client, Belchamp Community Hall, asked for a 3-month defect liability period, but you can specify up to 12 months under the terms of the JCT contract. We also did all of the local authority building control notifications. Again, it was a requirement of the funding that these were evidenced. And if you look at a project such as Belchamp, we had to consider Part L of the building regulations, which is the conservation of heat and power. We also had to look at Part F of the building regulations to look at what ventilation requirements were. We looked at Part C of the building regulations, which looks at cross-flow ventilation and air tightness. And particularly importantly, we also have to consider Part B, which is the building regulations in relation to fire. All of those things have to be considered and notifications have to be made to the local authority. And just a word from the wise, when you're planning budgets on this type of thing, Braintree District Council charged £630, including VAT, to certify 2 fabric elements, and they do have to come to site. So it's worth considering. As I said before, we did an EICR, which is effectively an electrical safety report, to make sure that when we handed the building back, that all of the wiring had been checked and that the building was then suitable for members of the public and staff to work to be in. We did a good handover, proper handover, face-to-face meeting, walking around, looking at snagging. We issued guarantees in conjunction with SWIP, 25 years for materials and workmanship. And then we had a backstop date when the defects period would end. So I do have more slides, but they're not going to go into as much detail as this for those of you who are struggling to stay awake. But it's worth you reading the case study. It covers all of the elements, all of the sizes, all of the products that we used, and all of the teams that we engaged. Really important when you're doing your design that you consider U values. This is something that we do for all the projects we work in. We talked about Part L of the building regulations. The building regulations for external solid walls say that the U value should get to 0.30 or less. As you can see, we achieved that on this project. We do this for you because it's likely that you will need this documentation. If you transfer the building or it changes hands, they'll want to see that this has been considered in design. We also look at the condensation risk. It's important that we don't over-insulate and cause condensation problems. So we will do a condensation risk analysis as well. And obviously that has to pass. If it doesn't pass, we have to go back and talk to the SWIP technical team about how we can change the standard installation design with extra design detailing to ensure that there's no risk of condensation at any month during the year. We also did a ventilation strategy. So we looked at what the existing ventilation was and what ventilation we then needed to add. We consider ventilation in respect of background ventilation and mechanical extract ventilation. And for Community House, we specified some Blauberg MHVR, which is mechanical heat ventilation recovery systems. And the great thing about MHVR is they continually extract the stale, humid air and replace them with fresh filtered air. And that makes sure that your community spaces can be pleasant for people that use them. So this is a picture of Belchamp Community House. It's a beautiful building. They're very lucky. It looks like it might be ancient. It looks like it might have been built in the late 1800s or 1900s. It was actually built in 1960. And it is a narrow cavity building. So it's got a little teeny tiny cavity that is probably around about 20 millimeters. So not suitable for cavity wall insulation. We had to go for an internal wall insulation system. But we did internal wall insulation. We also insulated the underfloor. So we had a nice clear suspended timber void in the underfloor where we had good cross-flow ventilation. We put the Blauberg Vento MHVR systems in. We also rewired, and that was unexpected, but we rewired the main hall and the club room. And because we discovered some rather shady wiring that had been installed in the 60s. We redecorated, and it was really important to the trustees of the community house that they maintained the aesthetic that they already had, because that is what people liked. That is why people came to the community house. So we selected similar paints, similar colours, and we actually replaced a lot of the wall hangings and things like that had been sitting in the community hall for decades. It's really important when you're looking at these projects as well that you work with somebody that's going to do a full inventory of all of your possessions. We do a full photographic inventory, and we document that on an Excel spreadsheet so that everything that you entrust us with during the retrofit comes back to you in the same condition in which you entrusted it to us. Things like curtains, curtain poles, chairs, tables, pictures, memorial plaques. There was a few memorial plaques in the community hall. It's really important that these things get looked after by the people that you work with. We did do some heating in community hall. We put some new Dimplex Quantum high heat retention storage heaters in. And it took us 4 weeks from start to finish, which was very tight. But it was important because we had to make sure that we did it between bookings. And it was interesting that the schedule that we were given, we handed over on the Monday and it was hired out to the art club on the Tuesday lunchtime. So yeah, it was quite tight getting back into action. And they did say, "Oh, do you think we're going to need to cancel these people?" And you know, I said, "Absolutely not. If we have to work late, we'll work late, but we'll get it done for you." So just a couple more slides for me now. You'd be pleased to know. So these are the measurable results. The floor U value was 0.7 when we started, and we got it down to the building regulations requirement of 0.15. The walls were 2.2 U value, and we got them down to 0.3. And if you look at the savings, 9,000 kilowatt hour savings a year is pretty significant when you think about what you're paying for each one of those kilowatt hours. Dramatic reductions in cold bridging and heat loss. And in the case study, you'll see we did some thermal imaging before and after. Improved comfort and acoustics. One of the things Jill didn't mention about their product is it does actually improve the acoustics remarkably well, because it completely muffles the sound. So that's good. And the picture that I've put up is one of my nicest pictures, because it shows the beautiful engineered oak floor that we relayed. So we took the floor up, and it was at the end of its serviceable life. It had been down for 45, 50 years. And yeah, so we took it up and replaced it with this engineered oak. But the decoration, is just really important that we maintain that color scheme. You'll also see that we put a lot more plug sockets in than they were originally. We did that because when they do fetes in the summer, people like to have a power socket next to their display. So these are the things you need to consider when you're bringing these projects to life. You'll also see that all of the plug sockets now are 45 centimeters from the floor, which is the current wiring regulations. But yeah, they chose some wall lights, and it's unfortunate that in this picture, under the word results, some of those are out. I took this picture before the guys had put the bulbs in, but they replaced the wall lights because we discovered that the ones they had there were not actually safe because of the way that they were wired. So they were very fortunate nobody got blown up. But yeah, that's really the story of Belchamp Community Hall. So I'll probably finish with a quote from Clive Waite, who's one of the trustees at Belchamp Community Hall. And he said, we'd certainly recommend SWIP and CT Eco Plus if we were considering projects like this in the future. The way everybody worked together was very straightforward with openness and honesty. And I think that was the secret to the whole project. So I think I've got 2 more slides, and they are photographs. No, in fact, it's 1 more slide. So these are some of the pictures of the work in progress and some of the completed pictures. The guy that did the work, headed up the work, said, oh, can you put this nice detailing picture in of the new window sills and the new dado rail and the new skirtings? And we picked the skirtings to be in keeping with the character. And we had to drive a long way to get them because they were custom made, so that were nice, deep, with a Victorian detail. But you can see the membrane on in the next picture. You can see the plasterboard on. Then we started taking up parts of the floor to do the insulation. The insulation is in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a picture of Tom on a hop-up doing a bit of plastering. And the last picture is the other end of the previous picture I've just showed you, with another light out, which is really frustrating. But just showing you the standard of finish that we got to. And that's me. So thank you very much for your attention. I think I was given 20 minutes and I've used 24. So I do apologise for that, but happy to take any questions. And I think I can now stop sharing. Ollie, I've sent these slides to you in PDF for ease of sharing, and my contact details are on there, so I shall now stop sharing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, Rachel. I think we'll let you off the 4 minutes as well, as that was a great presentation. It's great. Yeah, it's great to see, I think, a bit more detail about the project and kind of some of those practicalities. I'm going to stop the recording now.